Gregorian calendar is lost on the island of Triceratopses, as is most modern achievements and technologies of the things of the human experience. The serrated shores, all 12 isles, guarded by both time and the black gemstone daggers that protect the civilization from any club-happy barbarians. In a band of bright rolling aqua waves, each island sits nestled, an oasis from the dark scourge of waves, both rough and rogue. The island of Triceratopses, after all these millions of years, is still a haven for lushness. Vines weaving 40-foot palms, the fronds bearing fruit large enough for the pits to be the sizes of baseballs, berries plump as grapes, juices as sweet and runny as a purple and amber fig leaf. In the center, the tar pit still cracked open, leaving edible sludge, still being pumped into the earth's crest, still sweet, sticky, and viable as a substitute for sugar or honey. Speaking of sugar, the island of the Triceratops have entire jungles with walls of sugar cane, entire hills with the stalks of green and yellow. Not too many ships are made with a rudder at the bow. None but the Iowa's Gleaming Bream. The Gleaming Bream was a 2-story vessel, built by a haggard old man, dripping in crusted ocean residue, his long yellow slicker swaying from left to right. To build his boat, the first boat like this of any kind defied any logic. Yet, to build it like this still made the most sense. The waves here were different, and everyone on board had finally got to see just that. She sat with her knees drawn, feet on her small cot by the larger-than-comfort window. Her shirt, a thin material with delicate painted roses, hung to her knees where her khakis cut off professionally. The sooner she could get off this boat, the better. The boat was swooping, and the others on board, brash and drunk. It was a several years' journey. The itchy idleness was beginning to fester into angry impatience. 2 men crashed into each other, sparring and wrestling. They were beginning to do that more and more so. One was a brick-built, confident explorer, who was sure to try to take hold of any room he entered, or any person he was sure to persuade. The other was a chunky man with spiked hair, quick as his colleague was with instructions. He, in juxtaposition, was quick with a goofy laugh. Then there was Wendeline, the straight-laced daydream. Though she would never know it, all her best friends' mothers compared their own daughters to her. There was another man on board, a black man with a head of dreads and a voice that could settle the most violent ocean tantrum. He kept to himself mostly, and smiled a smile warmer than all the coffee that was keeping Wendeline and the others going until they could dock. To hear the words they knew would come, land ho one day, would be a light at the end of a long, stifling tunnel. And then the bream whirred to a stop, and Wendeline jolted forward. She and her hard-covered book were thrown off of the cot. Getting up and looking out of the boat's bay windows, she saw it. The captain shouted, but his words were drowned by the rowdiness of the 2 guys racing towards the bow to get the look they'd been dreaming of. Warmer, the bulky man with the enchanting grin, took one look out of the kitchen, jousting with the others in words and laughs. It was finally here. Old Gleaming Bream carried them all as fast as she could close to the shore. There, a few feet from the sand, there were sparkling boulders, big as houses, all sitting before several mossy wedges of towering cakes. Wendeline saw the captain's thin, leathery lips curl as he snarled her way. Seeing the men jumping into the turquoise waters that rippled, her vision faded and crashed into translucent spins as she slowly began to question what was really happening. Standing onto the railing, no doubt a disorienting plummet. She held onto her shoulders and jumped down several feet away from the men, still in their own bubbles of splashing and punching. The ocean looked calm to anyone privileged enough to view it from a boat. But once inside, it lapped her back. Her thick red hair was pulled down into strings of deep auburn as she kicked her freckled arms and legs to fight the currents and keep surface. She clawed at the water until she found her motor skills. Beat by beat, she glided until she could feel ground, thick and soft. Gaining gravity was sobering, and it caused her to lean over onto the postcard-perfect sand. Behind her were breaking waves, and the unmistakable smell and gurgle of the old captain, still in his hat, his yellow slicker, and his disgruntled demeanor at seeing Wendeline rub her limbs to prepare for trekking. He hadn't even bothered to ask if everyone was accounted for when he began to pass her by, wobbly and off-kilter as his footsteps were. He was walking uphill to the thick, waxy brushes. The air was thick and warm, and frolicking with the sound of gulls. Wendeline silently tried to deduce how this gnarled old grumper could outpace them to the beginning of the woods. He stopped, causing a chain reaction of abrupt abashment. Besides announcing that they had all just made landfall, they all heard the old guy speak for the first time in about a year. He nodded his head at the empty forest.
Vladvaru.
From the thick jungle walked out a triceratops. He donned traditional triceratopsian designs. His tail dragged in the sand, and he towered over the humpback old fisherman. His eyes were bright yellow. Steam clouded from his nostrils. He let out a deep rumble that was enough to make the hair on all the humans' necks etch in horror. The Triceratops man nodded and grinned, notioning his red and near-arthritic fingers. Captain Vern introduced them all. Vladvaru laughed, his footsteps booming towards the humans. So these are the ones. Vladvaru laughed and happily walked to the humans. Brick stood in front of all the men, but still seemed to fight for his chance to speak to the Triceratops. The two shook hands, though Vladvaru's palm nearly ate the confident Bricks. Spike smiled, turning his big pink cheeks into 2 fresh strawberry cream cakes. Warmer's face was relaxed and respectful. They both said, "Happy to meet you."